Hello, my name is Ruben Lopez and I am a student of the Professional Communications course here at UTEP Connect. Now, before I move on with my presentation, I'd like to present you with a hypothetical. Now, I have a $100 bill here in my hand, nice, clean, and crisp. Now, this could be yours, and all you have to do is convince me to give it to you in 5 words or less. Go ahead. Now, I know what's probably going through your head. You're thinking of all the positive qualities that you have as a person, of how nice you are. You may be thinking of all the good things or positive things that you can do with $100. And you're trying to pull that all together and try to figure out what is the best 5 words for you to communicate all that to me. So what I did is I provided you with a constraint. And with that, I wanted to illustrate how important it is to prepare to communicate, especially when it comes to the sales world. And the example I just gave is basically what you were trying to do is to sell yourself as a person. Now, according to an Amazon bestseller called The Perfect Close, the majority of all sales happen within the very first meeting between a salesperson and a customer. What that means is that if you allow a customer to stand up and leave and tell you that they'll get back to you or that their people will be in contact with your people, it is very unlikely that a sale will actually occur. And when the sale does occur, it is very unlikely that it will be favorable to you as a salesperson. So with those constraints in mind, it is that much more important to make sure that your communication is effective and efficient. And with that, it is that much more important that you prepare to communicate. Now, there's 3 basic steps that I can highlight that will help you in that preparation process. First, it is important to sell yourself. Then it is important to get to know your customer. And lastly, you sell your product. And the order of those 3 is very important. But first, let's talk about selling yourself. In the example that we just talked about, I asked you to sell yourself in 5 words or less. It was not an easy task, and when we're done with this presentation, you'll probably run it through your head a few more times. But in sales, the product is actually tertiary in the importance of how to sell. First and foremost, it is important that the customer trusts you as a salesperson and as a person in general. Now, with that comes making a positive first impression. And a first impression can involve every aspect of you as a person. It can involve the way you present yourself physically. That involves your clothes, your hygienic practices, shaving, having combed hair. Basically, as a lot of salespeople will tell you, you have to look the part. It is important that the customer trusts you first as a person and that you are prepared with the right introductory interaction to be able to sell yourself as a positive person. Selling yourself can be one of the more difficult things to do. A lot of salesmen can sell the product because they're able to cite numbers, they're able to cite statistics and things of that nature. Now, when it comes to selling yourself, you don't quite have that luxury, but it is just as important. Now, after you've sold yourself and the customer trusts you, the next step is to get to know the customer. Now, I'm talking in terms of preparation. Now, in today's communication world, there is countless ways to get to know a business and get to know a person specifically. Now, I'm not advocating for intruding into somebody's personal life, but it is important to get to know the various aspects of the company that you're trying to sell to or the specific customer that you're trying to sell to. Customers ultimately are people, and people are unique. And with that uniqueness comes unique needs. So when it comes to selling any type of product, it is important that you tailor your sales pitch to those specific needs of that customer. One of the most common mistakes that are made in the business world or in the sales world is that salesmen have one sales pitch that they give to every customer. Now, yes, you're going to get a few sales here and there because some of the things that you say might appeal to 1 or 2 aspects of the customers that you're presenting. But in order to become more proficient and efficient in the way that you communicate, to a specific customer, it is important that you tailor your sales pitch specifically to that customer. Now, in order to do so, you have to know the customer. Now that brings me to the third element, and that is to sell the product. And it is important to understand why selling the product was third on my list. Because if first you didn't sell yourself as a salesman, and the salesman isn't trusted by the customer, then the product is not going to matter. And if you're not tailoring your sales pitch specific to that customer, again, the product is not going to matter. So now that we're in the preparation to communicate about the product itself, we are going to use the other two elements to tailor that speech. When it comes to selling any product, you really only want to use 3 or 4 basic points or basic highlights about the product. Consider this. If you are selling a hamburger at a restaurant, not everybody wants to know the preparation process and all the background behind the burger. Some people just want to know, does it taste good? Some people want to know, well, how much is it going to cost me? But then you do have that select few customers that want to know everything about the preparation process, the hygiene involved, the cleanliness, whether or not the animal that was used was grass-fed, were they encaged, were they injected with hormones. All of those different aspects could be important to a certain section of your customer base, but not everybody wants to know that. In fact, in presenting all that to a customer that really only wants to know how good it is, you might actually lose the interest of that customer and in turn lose that sale. So you want to have basic elements of the product itself tailored specifically to the research that you did for that specific customer. Now, knowing those 3 elements and the little intricacies that we talked about, let's go back to the example, the hypothetical that we had at the beginning of the story. Would you change the way you would present yourself? The way you would sell yourself? Or more importantly, given the time, would you prepare to communicate? Hopefully the answer to that question is yes, because the more prepared you are for that communication process, the more likely it is that you'll close that sale. And in this particular case, the more likely it is that you'll go home with these $100.